Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Sebaton. I'm a member of the Board of Directors of Midwest Clinic. Welcome you to this session. First of all, we want to encourage everyone to, if you have a great clinic idea, we invite you to apply for the 2015 Midwest Clinic. Those applications are due by March, and we would encourage everyone to do that. And if you have a group that you feel like would be a great ensemble to perform up here, we encourage you to apply as well. The group sitting in front of you is near and dear to my heart. And as a board member, I get to choose the things that I get to introduce. And so, actually, I just found out I was going to do this about 5 minutes ago because I didn't think I was going to get here in time, but here I am. I'm an alumni of this group, so I'm very proud to welcome the Baylor University Wind Ensemble and their conductor. Please welcome. Our clinician today called the Midwest office about a month ago. Said, I'm very concerned about where this my session has been scheduled because it's right up against the Chicago Brass. I don't think anyone's going to be there. Who scheduled this event going against Chicago Brass? So Frank, sorry, we didn't get you enough people here. But Frank Ticheli is, well, he needs no introduction, really. How many people, raise your hand if you have performed, conducted his pieces, any of his pieces? Frank, you feeling okay about yourself? Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Frank Ticheli.
Very much. I'd also like to thank my former friend Kevin Sebaton. It is a great pleasure to be here, and I am embarrassed that I was worried about the Chicago Symphony Brass. Some of you may not know they're playing right now. If I see anyone leaving, I'll know why they're leaving right now. I'm going to be talking about a lot of things today. I'm sharing with you personal thoughts of mine on a wide variety of topics, on composing for young musicians, on teaching young people how to compose as well, a little bit on folk music, just a wide variety of things. I did one of these talks 2 years ago in this very room, and it was very much focused on one thing. It was on the topic of passionate conducting. Today, it's a little bit more of a menu of different things. I think if there's any one theme, it would be that for me, challenges are a thing that I have learned to celebrate, because challenges lead me down a path to find solutions that I'm often not clever enough to find out on my own. And so if there's any one thing, that might be kind of a guiding, a sort of stream here, a thread that ties all of these things together. But it's a wide variety of things. I'm going to start out talking about a grade 1 work. I'm not sure why I took this long. You can see here on the video, I have, in the last 2 years, written these works, and they're all grade 1. First Light, published last year and performed here last year, I believe. December Snow, just published in November, a brand new work called Peace that I'll be talking about a lot here. On Horseback, not even published yet, and one I'm working on now, I don't even have a title. So I'm not sure whether it's a phase, something tip, or whether it's a new direction in my life. I just know that right now I'm writing a lot of works for the very beginning students, and I'm enjoying it. I'm finding that I'm really enjoying it. I'm still writing for pros and college level and all different levels of budget. A saxophone concerto that I just finished recently. Before that, my 3rd symphony for chorus and orchestra. I'm writing a flute concerto coming up for a consortium. So I'm still doing all of that as well, but on top of that, I'm doing this and finding that I'm really enjoying it. It's not easy to do. Actually, I should say it is. It's easy to write. John Mackey and I were having this conversation just recently over the internet. It's actually easy to compose grade 1 music. It's difficult to do it well, and it's because of the restrictions. so many things that they can't do. They can't do stuff yet. They're young. You know, the fingers can't fill the holes sometimes and so forth. The lungs are small. All of these little things. So there's a lot that they can't do. And I think that's probably why I've been intimidated, why I've kind of stayed away from that lowest grade. And really haven't written much grade 2 either. Portrait of a Clown, a couple of others. But I think it's just been a little bit intimidating for me. And so I'm glad I finally come around to it because I really am enjoying it. So I'm going to talk a bit about these restrictions. Here we go. In the next video here, you will see it's kind of a self-pep talk that I give to myself. I hope you can all read this. I can't without my glasses. What I did before I wrote my first grade 1 pieces, and this is something I do a lot actually, I put down what are the problems here, what are the challenges, and then how can I overcome them. So in a way, it's almost like a pep talk. The first column is really my fears. What am I really afraid? Why am I afraid to write grade 1 music? Well, it's because the players can't do stuff. That's one reason right there. Limited range, limited rhythms, so forth. And then I put on the other side, I argue with myself. I give myself a little pep talk. And I mentioned what I just said to you, how restrictions always force me down a path to find solutions that I'm often not smart enough to find otherwise. I need those problems. They help me solve issues. The second thing, they need music that teaches them stuff. Music with pedagogical aims. That bothers me because I always want music. I don't want to write music that's just about pedagogy. And so, of course, my self-talk, maybe it's obvious, but music can teach new concepts without being about those concepts. It can transcend the concept. It can transcend the pedagogy, aiming for higher artistic aims. And we'll talk a bit about that, how I kind of address that in piece. A sense of urgency that's always been an important value to me. To have music that does this, it's going somewhere. It never just sits here. It feels like it's got to go from point A to point B. That sense of urgency, the sense that the next note has to be there. That's a hard thing to do when you're dealing with all these limited technical issues here. And so this is maybe my weakest argument, but I'm saying one can create urgency in other ways through subtle tonal games, by delaying resolutions, by withholding the tonic chord, and occasionally by not going for the most obvious chord. It ended up not being my weakest argument. That ended up being my strongest weapon right there, number 3 right there. You'll see how I manifested that. And then finally, the players can be timid when playing alone or in small groups. We all know that. And so much music at this level is for the big 2D block score kind of thing, where you get that gray sound, and I didn't want to do that. And so again, I pep talk myself and say it's never too early to empower small groups to carry the ball by themselves, and ironically, by scoring lightly, you actually empower them and you give them more confidence, especially in the long run. So these are sort of the kinds of things I did before I wrote a single note, just arguing with myself. Why am I afraid of this, and how can I overcome this fear? And then there's one more thing. On the next video image, there's one more thing that's always been a source of inspiration for me, and that's Mozart. This is from a letter to his father. Maybe many of you know this. He's writing from Vienna about why he thought his piano concertos, all of the masterpieces, as you know, why he thought they would succeed in very fickle Vienna. And he says to his father, there are passages here and there from which the connoisseurs alone can derive satisfaction. But these passages are written in such a way that the less learned cannot fail to be pleased, though without knowing why. That has been a huge inspiration for years and years, since I was in graduate school. Anytime I sit down to write anything for young musicians, I'm thinking about that. Can I write something that they will enjoy, but that the teacher, the conductor, and the musicians will also appreciate on another level? And that whole inspiration comes from Mozart, right? Isn't that a beautiful quote right there in that letter to his father? Huge source of inspiration for me. And something I try to do, even in this work I'm about to share with you, Peace, this little grade 1 work. It's just being published now. In fact, it's not really published yet. It'll be out in a couple of weeks. So here we go. We can go on to the next video, and as you can see the restrictions I placed on myself. This piece was written for a lifelong friend of mine. Her name is Cindy Sobering. She originally challenged me to write a piece that her kids could play by the end of their first semester. And I didn't succeed in that. It's not a true grade 1/2 piece, but they can certainly do it in their first year. And so you see the restrictions here on the notes. Everybody's within about an octave. Some even less than an octave. All B-flat major notes. These are written notes. And you'll see in yellow highlight there's some A flat concerts. So it introduces one note outside the key. You know, the little throat tone B flat on the clarinet, the F natural on the saxophone, the B flat on the tenor, the A flat trombone's third position, and the tuba A flat. So introducing that one note. The rhythms are also very simple. No dotted notes yet, just quarter notes, eighth notes, and the eighth notes are all repeated eighth notes. No, you don't have to step up while you're doing eighth notes. So it's really simple stuff. So these are the kinds of restrictions I have here. And so, on the one hand, piece has got a pedagogical aim. You see all those A flats. It's teaching A flat, a new note to these young players. But as I said, I wanted to go beyond that. And so, if we could go to the next video. Yeah, this is a little piano reduction of the piece. I don't know if you can see it, but I'd like to ask Eric Wilson and this fabulous Baylor Wind Ensemble just to perform this first excerpt. I'm going to go over to the piano and talk a little bit more, but this is the first 8 bars of the piece. And I want you to, you can see, it's got an A flat at the end of the 4th bar, and then I change it to an A natural in the second system down there. So it's playing around with A flat and A natural. So let's start with that. Beginning the piece. So what would you do next? I've repeated it, kind of done with that now. We've got to go on and do something else. Rather than give us E flat or B flat, I sort of sidestep it. So I prolong this mystery a little longer. So we get that B flat chord there. And then G minor. There's B flat. Back to G minor. But this is not until about measure 26. So this is sort of what the piece is about, this little game. Which key is it going to be? As soon as I get here, though, as soon as I finally give you an authentic cadence of B flat, I go here. So we're on E flat. There's an A flat major chord. And then I repeat it. Got me excited that I was not just teaching A flat, but I was able to write a piece that addresses the relationship between an A flat and an A natural, and how they keep a sense of mystery about key. B flat major, E flat major, and then G minor. Which one is it going to end up being? And of course, in the end, it is B flat major. After all, it's great one. So that gives you a sense of that. One of my favorite spots, now that I've played this game, now you're at a point where you don't know what, you can almost expect anything. And so one of my favorite spots is as we get to the end of this middle section, I bring back the E flat majors with the chimes again. But I do it just abruptly. There's a B flat hanging over, and we just go back to E flat major. But because by now, we're kind of used to this relationship between, we don't need to set it up with a transition. I just go and I hang a B flat over as we go back to E flat major. Of course, that's a dominant. It starts as a tonic, it becomes a dominant. So we'll play that phrase into that recap. you get a little taste of that right there. I hope you heard what I was talking about, that sort of just back at E flat now with the chimes. So we'd like to play the whole piece. It's at least 2 minutes and 50 seconds long. And so we're going to play this whole work here for you, but not without me just sort of summarizing what the piece is about to me. I mean, it's celebrating this notion that limitations and problems of all kinds can trigger these solutions that we don't come up with necessarily on our own. And I've discovered this my entire life in so many different ways. So problems are a thing to celebrate, actually, not a thing to avoid. And again, for me, the simplest piece, even the simplest piece, should transcend its pedagogy. It shouldn't just be about that A flat, but it should transcend that and go to some other realm, some other level of expression beyond just the pedagogy. It can be inspired by the pedagogy, but it has to go on beyond that to the next thing. And for me, it was this game between the A flat and A natural. And then again, without the wide range of pitches and so forth, I was able to try these sort of tone games to bring back something that was special and meaningful to me. So anyway, that's, I think, enough summary about that. I would just like to I'm going to embarrass her, but I'd like to introduce my lifelong friend for whom I wrote this piece. Her name is Cindy Sobering. She's at Highland Park in Texas, and she is the one who inspired this piece. So Cindy, just stand up, please. rhythm. Da, 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 da. Any Suzuki people here? Suzuki. I have been told that that rhythm, they use that for Twinkle Twinkle, that's Pasadena Freeway, Pasadena, is that true? Well, that's kind of cool because I live about a half mile from the Pasadena Freeway. So now we're going to talk about teaching kids a little bit about how to compose, and not just, this is a mistake I think a lot of people make, and I know that in many places in the country, in many states and districts, there is increasing pressure to teach creativity in some way, beyond just their instruments, but to teach them how to create music. And so I have this little alternative piece. I hope a lot of you got this piece when you walked in. We're going to perform this little piece, but I'm going to set it up and give you, sort of explain to you why I think this is a good thing to use to teach people, young people, about composition. First of all, it uses no traditional notation. There are no quarter notes, there are no F naturals, there's none of that. There are no instruments except for your body, the human body. So what's good about that is it places the musicians, the young musicians, on the same plane. So your star clarinet player is now on the same plane as the clarinet player in the very back, who's the youngest one, who can't cross the bridge, and so forth. Everybody's on the same plane, because this is transcending traditional musical technique and notes and rhythms, and harmony and all of that. And so that's a little bit about why. Can we go to the next, here's some of the challenges here. Young musicians, they often develop a belief that the main goal of music making is getting it right. And so we counter this belief, and that's what this piece does. We counter it by emphasizing other things: fun, adventure, imagination, improvisation, not so much about getting it right. The second thing, young musicians can be intimidated by composing assignments because composing is highly specialized. Their writing chops lag behind their ears, and that's very true. Their ability to write these notes on the page lags behind what their ears expect. And so we can replace the traditional notation, as I say, with other forms of expression. And you diminish the intimidation factor. You can't compose until you've learned theory, harmony, and counterpoint. But really, in the end, we all just have our ears. After all the theory, and yes, I'm not going to lie, of course it helps to know harmony, understand harmony, and counterpoint. Just so much we have to know. But in the end, we all just have our ears, and you can focus on that instead. And then finally, many musicians think that one must follow rules when composing, laws that have been handed down from generation to generation. And in reality, there really are no rules. All of these rules that we learned in theory class and so forth are just a result of number crunching. Some scholar sat down and said, how many times did Bach do this? And how many times did Mozart do this? Okay, he didn't do this very often. Let's make that a rule, something not to do, parallel fifths. But by the way, Bach and Mozart both have lots of parallel fifths. They just don't do it that often. And so that became a rule. So all of those things, those are really just, it's just statistics. It's just number crunching. So we can go on to the next one. Oh, I guess the next one's what's in your lap. The next video, what's it? Oh yeah, forget that. Pay no attention to that yet. We're on to the thing in your lap. Let's do this now. So we're going to do this in 3 groups, and I'm not sure how to do this. I guess we'll do group 1, group 2, and group 3. And our audience will be the Baylor Wind Ensemble. So we're switching that. So that's actually group A, group B, group C. I use A, B, C so we don't mix it up with sections. So group A, at first you'll anything to do. That kind of thing, but do it quietly, and then don't increase the speed. Keep it kind of sparse. Keep it very quiet. And then you'll stay silent in part 2, and then you'll stomp your feet on the ground, on the carpet, quietly at first, and then you'll increase, like increasing thunder. And then for the last thing, you'll snap your fingers, rapid speed, and I'll fade you out. There you go. Group B, you're going to whistle when you pitch it first. And it can be, you can make it a tune. You can whistle a tune if you want, or just anything. And then for the second part, you'll do P, K, and T with no voice. That kind of stuff. Okay? I picked those 3 consonants because those are the only consonants. P, K, and T are your only unvoiced percussive consonants. And their voice version will be B, B, G, D, right? That's your voice version of that. So they're unvoiced, but they're percussive. So I want them percussive. And then you'll click your tongue quietly, but this time you're going to gradually increase that. Get the same thing they did, but you're going to get louder and louder. And then you're going to imitate the sound of breeze, a gentle breeze at the end. Part 4. Group 3, you're going to slap your hands on the lap at the beginning. Then you're going to make that shh sound, and then you're going to cough in part 3 quietly at first, and then you'll increase it. And the volume, the frequency and volume. Then finally, you're going to whisper the title of the piece. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players, from Shakespeare. But very quietly, you'll be reciting that. And you can say the words in any order. You don't have to read it straight to left or right, just in any order. So here we go. I'm going to perform this now. I'm going to get
It's going to be like Amazing Grace, amazing.
Give yourself a hand. Now we can do that. You can do this with your kids, and if you look on the back, I gave a blank page for you to have the kids. You can give this out to your kids, and then make their own pieces of it. And you can do this and perform it and have fun.
Please do that at a concert.
But there's more. You're missing an opportunity if you just do this and have fun. And just perform and have fun and enjoy it. You can also now use this as a chance to talk about all these things we value as composers beyond just getting the right notes. This is about all these other things. The sense of adventure. Was there enough contrast? Was that climax powerful? Could we do something to make the climax bigger? Was there a balance problem? Were the costs too loud for all of this other stuff here? Okay, that we would do something else instead of the cost. They say, yeah, that coughing is stupid. I don't want to do that. Then you can change that. So these kinds of things, you can talk about that. You can ask this, and you have to ask the students. I wouldn't be in, if I were you, I wouldn't tell them what's wrong. Let them say, because then they're part of the creative process. Let them offer what they think is wrong with the piece and could make it better. Let them suggest other sounds other than those indicated. Change some parameters. Change the volume. Change the order. Do the piece backwards. Change the way the groups are. Let them just randomly. If your last name starts between A and J, you're group 1. If it's K to Q, you're group 2, and so forth. You can do it that way, so all the groups are kind of all together rather than separated spatially. You can do all these kinds of things. It doesn't have to be in boxes like it. If you don't like boxes, make a circle. Let the kids come up with ways to do this. But you've got to talk about the sense of drama, the sense of architecture. What was the architecture like? What can we do to improve the architecture? How about that sense of urgency that I talked about? Is there something we can do to make it more urgent? If you talk about these things, you're actually talking about far more important compositional values than whether it should be an F natural or an F sharp. So I think this kind of thing is very useful. It takes us away from just the notes. It wasn't Mahler who said what's most special about music is not to be found in the notes. Mahler is the one who said it. I'm paraphrasing. And that's very true. And this kind of celebrates that, this little piece here. Okay, thank you. And you guys did really beautifully on that. I can't believe I composed that. Okay, we're going to now move on. As I said, this is a grab bag of a lot of different things. But we're going to move on to the next thing. This is about folk song settings. And again, my challenges and then the possibilities that they yield. So in this handout, this thing on the board here, rather, you've got challenges and possibilities. This is a commission I received from Korea, Jeju Island, Korea. I've been there many times. How many of you have been to Korea, to Jeju actually? Anybody see a few hands? They have a great festival there. It's a Jeju International Wind Ensemble Festival. And I've been there, I think, about 5 times. And they commissioned me, they wanted me to do a setting of their folk songs. Not Korean folk songs, but Jeju folk songs, which is a small part of the Korean culture. And a very isolated, because it's an island off the mainland. It's been separated culturally. For thousands of years it was separated from the mainland in terms of culture, music, food, language even. Everything's very different from mainland Korea. And so they wanted me to set their melodies, and they're very powerful to the people there. They mean a lot, as do folk songs to just about any culture. But there's just great love for these, and I'm going to play for you a melody in just a moment here, the original melody. Here are the problems before I play it. The problems are that all the Jeju, every single Jeju folk song is based on the 5-note pentatonic scale. And just simple melodies with no modulation or development. And also, every Jeju melody is in compound triple meter. So there's a problem right there. So you can see as I kind of address each of them. Okay, they're all in pentatonic, so I'm going to harmonize using outside notes, outside the pentatonic scale. Duh. Of course, that's what I'm going to do. The simple melodies with no real development, well, I'm going to use color, I'm going to use counterpoint, I'm going to invent counter melodies, all of this to make it more interesting. And then finally, all the melodies in triple meter, well, I'm going to mess with polymeter in the accompaniment. So if it's, even though it's in 9/8, I'm going to do some things that are in 6/8, or even 2/4 or 3/4. So we get some kind of tension between the 9/8, it's always there, and other tempos, other rhythms and meters. Okay, so I'd like to, the Baylor Band is going to perform in just a moment here the first few bars of the first movement. We're going to play a bit of the first and a bit of the last. It's in 3 movements. But first I want you to hear this recording. This is a Korean folk song sung by a Korean master, a woman who is revered in Jeju for singing Jeju folk songs. And to the Koreans, before you hear this, to Koreans this is very beautiful and moving. To our ears, this is a little weird. It's a little wonky because the vibrato is like a whole octave, and you'll hear it. So this is the original Korean melody, followed immediately by the band. Play it. Okay, so you can already tell I'm making it brisker, bouncier, and I'm relying on color. I mean, already you've heard about 10 different colors in these first few seconds here. The trumpet and the piccolo, 2 octaves apart, with a tune and so forth. So I'm messing around with the original quite a lot because we don't have the words. We wouldn't understand the words anyway if we had them. And so I'm doing other things. Without those words telling the story, we need these other things. That's obvious. That's what we do with folk melodies. Also counterpoint. Without the text again, I just feel you just need other things. And so counterpoint is something that keeps the listener interested. This next excerpt shows the tune in close canon, but then also the low brass and woodwinds. You'll hear them playing the tune at half speed in augmentation. So kind of 3-part canon with one of the voices at half speed, the other 2 voices at regular speed. And there are tons of those kind of things. If you get that kind of thing, canon, and different speeds of the melody and so forth. I even sort of cross-fertilize so that tunes from the third movement come into the first movement, tunes from the first movement in the second, so they're sort of talking to each other, the different songs. So I do that kind of thing. We're going to move on to the third movement, and this is a recording of that. This is a celebration on Hala Mountain, which is the center of Jeju. Jeju is a volcanic island, and everything is about Hala Mountain to them. And so this is a folk song celebrating Hala Mountain. I want you to listen. I'd like to ask you, what are the problems with this? What problem, if you were setting this, what would be the problems, besides the fact that we don't have the words? What other problems are there that you would feel need to be overcome in a setting? So think about that. I'm going to ask you a question in just a moment. We'll play the recording first. If you were saying this, what would be the thing to overcome? Yes?
I guess part of it being nature of stroke song, whereas I guess we're trying to go back to the verses, but we don't really have voices to kind of carry the same melody because over and over after a while. It's going to get boring, so you have to change it in some way.
You just nailed it. You just made it easy for everybody else here. It's the problem. What she's saying is, it's the same tune. The form of this is A. There is no beat. I mean, and all they do is the kids, and then the soprano, and then the kids, and then the soloist, back and forth. So a little bit A1, A1, A1. Still, that's going to get a little bit monotonous. So of course, there are obvious solutions. It's because composers have been setting these kinds of strophic forms for a long time. Think about the great ones in our field, Holst and Granger both come to mind. I'm thinking, and then he does it again. Of course, what does he do? Lots of things, right? Little counter melodies. That great moment where Greensleeves comes in towards the end. Holst, that's great. That's over and over again as well. And of course, what both of these composers do is they're constantly varying the orchestration. They're varying the mood through articulations, from lyrical to percussive, and everything in between. They're using counter melodies, as the case with Greensleeves, both original and borrowed. And so if these techniques are good enough for them, they're good enough for me. And so I do a lot of the same things. As I also said, it's all this 3/9/8 over and over again. I heard like 100 things in 9/8. So that's going on as well. So I'd like you to just hear the very beginning of this movement. This is the third movement. I want you to hear it without the trumpets. The tune which you heard. That's the tune. But the accompaniment is not in 9/8. I want you just to hear the accompaniment first. Then we'll add the tune. Okay, so this is obvious, heavy all the stuff here, right there, and so it's 6/8 feeling there. And if we add the tune, you can hear this all together. And another thing I do after, this is kind of cheating because Granger and Holst didn't do this, I would think. They didn't invent a bridge tune. I put a little bridge tune just to give us a break. So we're going to play the beginning. You'll hear it 3 times through. It'll be A, and then I cheat and give you B. So there's a B in there. Every now and then when I feel like I'm getting sick of A, I just stick B in there. It happens about 3 times. So you'll hear the first time I use B. Okay, so there's your first AAAB, and I can do that again, as I said. Let's see, where are we? We're done with that. And actually, enough of this. I think my point, and I guess we could play one more excerpt, right? 41 to 48. Yeah, I invented counter melody. We can skip that. You'll hear the count. We're going to play the whole movement, so you'll hear the counter melody. I do invent a counter melody. You'll hear that. But I think enough of this. My point is that we're dealing with some of the same challenges, no matter whether we're composing for young people, or in this case, a little bit older. This is like grade 4, high school kids. We're dealing with contrast and similarity. We're dealing with surprise and predictability, a sense of urgency, making sure that the piece transcends just the elements of the piece and gets into something that's at a higher realm. All of these are the same issues. So I think enough talk for me. I'd like to use here this movement played in its entirety. It's again about 3 minutes long. So this is the third movement of the creative folk songs from Ticheli. Okay, at this point, we have a little bit of time to just take questions. So if you have any questions now, this is your chance. And it could be about your piece, about that little composition you have in your laps, or about this work Korean folk songs, or really about anything at all. So we have about, I'd say, about 5 to 8 minutes or so for questions before we finish up. We have one more very special excerpt to play before we're done. So this is a good time for questions. I see one here. Yes, sir?
Yes, with your arrangement folk song, how do you put this thing on the ranger? Don't feel like there's something essentially about
Yeah, it's a good question. He's asking when you're doing a folk song arrangement, how do you get beyond just the fact that it's that folk song? How do you add something of yourself to it? And you know, I think every composer is going to give you a slightly different answer to that. Some composers will say, I don't do folk songs for that very reason. Those composers who do it, you might get a variety of things. For me, I try to actually kind of pretend that I wrote the folk song. I compose it. At a certain point, I get to that point where I make it mine. And then I can do it the same things I would do with anything I come up with. And so that's kind of what I try to do. It's just a tune here. The words are gone. And I'm taking you on a journey. I'm telling a story. What's that story? In this case, the journey was very much going in this direction. It's increasing in intensity and majesty and volume with that final big statement at the end there. So that was my story, to take this, and I was thinking about the hollow mountain, thinking about what is the shape of a volcano. It's just going up in that direction. So I wanted the piece to kind of reflect this mountain that they revere in Ticheli. So that was a big inspiration for me. So, but every composer is going to answer that question a little bit differently. We have lots of composers here who can answer that too, I'm sure. I see one over there. Other questions, though? Yeah. You're asking if I do that?
Yeah. Do you use the same process?
Oh yeah, it's the same. And I have to, he's asking me, is the process different if I'm inspired by visual things versus when I'm not? And to tell the truth, a lot of times my titles come after the piece is composed. A lot of times I'm just writing music. I'm sitting down at my desk, and I'm at measure 27, and I know that in measure 28, anything can happen. Anything. It's still blank there, and anything can happen. I can continue whatever I've been doing at measure 27. I can break right there and do something completely different. Now, that doesn't mean I'll make the right decision, but I know that anything can happen. And so, for me, that's really what it's all about. It's about this sense of where am I and where am I going, rather than it's usually not something very visual and specific, actually. And it's certainly not, this is a big myth, we composers, not one of us gets inspiration sitting under trees. It just doesn't happen. The real inspiration comes from sitting at the desk and doing the work, doing the hard work, putting in your time, doing the work, and then the next day you're going to have more ideas. Because that work, investing the time, generates more ideas. Young composers who come, I'm a professor at USC, I've been teaching there for 24 years. I've heard it all from my young composition majors. They come in and they say, I'm the worst composer in this school, or I'm great at coming up with ideas and then I don't know what to do with them, or I'm just not inspired, I'm suffering from writer's block, all of this. And usually when they say that, they're denying the simple fact that they're not putting in the time, or that they don't have the time. And they're just trying to sort of maneuver through it. You've got to put in the time. It's the hard work that generates the inspiration. Now, yes, sir.
When you have, when you're coming up with a piece, and then you have two different ideas, or many different ideas, how do you select which ones belong together in a piece as opposed to in a completely separate piece that you might compose later?
The question is, when you have more than one idea for a piece, how do you know and when do you know those two ideas belong together? Versus maybe one idea needs to be saved for another piece. Well, that happens all the time. And it's usually the music tells you, not literally, I'm not that crazy, it doesn't literally tell you. Yes. But it starts to, the more you invest in the piece, the more the energy is like this. The piece is starting to suggest where it wants to go. And if you're not listening to that, you're going to make a mistake. I liken it to, you know, when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And you've been doing this a long time, you're getting a little tired, and you've got a piece that, you finally found the piece that's going to go there. and it doesn't go, but you're going to still, damn it, that's going to go there. And you're forcing it. And we do that as composers. If we're not listening to the music, we're like that jigsaw puzzle person who's getting tired, forcing it. And you have to listen. You have to sit back and listen. And it's not just from you, it's from the piece itself. So it's that kind of synergy. The main thing from Vesuvius, you all, that was an example right there. I was trying to force it into an orchestra piece called Radiant Voices. And finally, I gave up, and I'm so glad I did, because 3 years later, I found the perfect place for it, Vesuvius. So it's listening to the music. Let's go, okay, I'm going to get this one and cut it back here. Let's go way back there, sir, the beard. The question is what I was just talking about earlier about how you want to transcend the pedagogy. Is that a challenge? I think it is a challenge and it isn't. Again, it's a challenge, but as I said earlier, the challenges, they really do lead me, force me down a path that I'm not smart enough to figure out on my own. So it's not so much a challenge, it's a celebration, it's a joy. It happens all the time. With my setting of rest, the words, how do you know, the rest, it starts like this. That sort of stuff. And it's all a cloud of one sound, and they're separated. There are 4 of them there in the choral version. How do you what words do you come up with? I had to come up with words for that when I did the choral version, because it's originally sanctuary for band. That was a huge problem, because how do you set that? You have to have one word syllable, because they're slurring all of that, and it has to stop, and you have to go into another word. You can't go, I love you. You just can't do that. Right? So there's the problem. So that problem led me to a solution, again, that I couldn't have figured out without the problem. And that is, okay, how can you have one-word sentences? Because it had to be like a thought that's complete. How do you have one-word sentences in the English language? Well, we have one way that we can do that, and that's the imperative. Sing, eat, sit, be, down. Those are all imperatives. We can do that. And so my opening of that is sing, see, be, live, see. Those 4. And I had my piece, and then I go on with the piece after that. And then at the end it comes back, and I have an object to those verbs. Peace. Sing, be, live, see, peace. Right at the modulation. I'm not smart enough to come up with all of that. The problem led me to all of that. Yes, sir?
In 8th grade, I played your Simple Gifts arrangement, and I actually cried when I first heard it. But we're playing it in high school right now as well. And I always wondered how you came up with those 4 separate movements.
He's asking about Simple Gifts, and that's on the subject of folk song. Where did I come up with those folk songs? I was at the McDowell Colony in Peterborough. Any of you heard of the McDowell Colony? It's a great artist colony where poets and playwrights and composers, painters, artists of all kinds go and just get away from the world and do their thing. And I was there, and a fellow artist said, I want you to hear these. And he played these Shaker songs for me, all unaccompanied, all unison, no harmony. And I just fell in love with them. And I picked the 4 that appealed to me the most. Mm-hmm. And so that's what's interesting, that I would never found this had I not interacted with a fellow artist who was not a musician. He was a painter, and turned me on to these songs. Okay, over here, and then we probably have to go on. Yes?
I teach younger musicians like junior high, and we could, probably not be able to play like a sanctuary, but we could play Earth songs.
And peace.
Right, and peace. And so talking about how you're excited about writing for different bands, do you find yourself going back and revisiting some of your harder works and going, is there something else here that maybe I can pull for a younger band?
So the question is, have I ever thought about going back to my more difficult works and taking like Sanctuary and making an easier version of that? I'm going to give away something here. I've actually started doing that a bit because I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm writing a method book for beginning musicians.
Oh, wow.
And I'm always... oh God, now the pressure's on. And I'm really enjoying it. I think that's awesome. That's all come out of this grade 1 stuff. I'm just really enjoying it. And so in that method, I'm taking, like, I've got a simple version of just 8 bars from Amazing Grace. It's in this method. It's like an easier version of that. So that kind of thing is actually happening a little bit more. And maybe published versions even. So that's a possibility. And you have to be really careful about that because the piece exists as it is, and I don't want to do anything to destroy its original intent. But if I can, then I'm going to do that. I think we'd better stop now. I'd love to take more questions, but I want to speak on behalf of Eric Wilson and the Baylor Wind Ensemble. We are honored that you have come here. You honored us by coming here. And, well, thank you. And thank you. Of course, they're performing tomorrow. Tomorrow afternoon at 4 o'clock, and I urge you all to come to that. They're opening with my Apollo Unleashed. They're also doing some amazing work by David Maslanka, a Libra May, a work by a Japanese composer named Ko that just blew. I just heard it. It's an incredible work. Work by Bernstein. It's from his Mask, that theater work. Bob Reynolds is conducting the whole suite in E flat. I mean, you're almost never going to get to see that. Not very many times. That's tomorrow. That's going to be amazing. And that has nothing to do with Bob's age. Bob, you're here. But you have honored us by being here. We really want to honor you. We are reminded when we see all of you. I'm reminded about these players here. Every one of these players started out as beginners and young musicians, and they were taught by teachers, just like so many of you here. And we're all just so grateful to you for what you do. Never underestimate what you do. This country right now needs you more than ever. And you remind me, personally, why I get up every day and like music. And so we want to just thank you. And by doing that, we'd like to just I'd like the band to just show off what they can do. These kids, I want you to hear what they can do. They're going to play an excerpt from Apollo Unleashed, which is just a snippet from their concert. Just as a reminder of what musicians can do when they have great teachers. So thank you all for coming. It's been a great pleasure and a great honor. Thank you.
Yeah, right?
Thank you.